So I wanted to make another video. Um, this is some new information. I'm going to talk about some other disturbing things probably in another video that you can look into and put some more evidence on. And I was going through the R.L. Turner high school yearbooks where my brother Frankie was going to high school. And before I get into that, I wanted to talk about when I was in elementary school. I talked about all these rapes that happened. It happened to me a few times. The numbers of times that I said, what had happened, the details, the drawings, and everything. Well, when I was in 4th grade, I talked about this. I came into school, and this is when my dad. I'm going to tell y'all how much power the police department had. Okay, this is how much power the police department has to allow rapes and homosexuals to get away with what they were doing to Frankie and to put me down. When I was in 4th grade, you can ask Dallas Patterson, Chris Kemp, Jessica Swanee. I don't think Jeremy Keene wasn't there that day. He was off that day because I remember talking about it with him. And then I think Richard didn't look because he had his back face toward me. But everyone in that class saw me cry. Like, I literally balled up in terror and just scared because I thought this guy was going to kill me or do something really bad to me. Now, when I was in 4th grade, the guy's name is Mr. Vassy, and I was at Good Elementary. And whenever I was at Good Elementary, going to school one day, this is the last 6 months or 5 months of the year. It was the second half of the year. It was at least January, if not maybe February, maybe even March. But it was the last 4 to 5 months of school of that year. And I came in a class, and I was watering. We were doing an experiment of watering beans, I think it was. And you put a bean and you put soil and fertilizer, see which, and all the students are growing. And I came in, and I was to do my normal watering of the plant like you're supposed to in the morning. And I grew one of the tallest plants, and all the entire 4th grade was in Mr. Vassy's class. But I was in Mr. Vassy's class because they had different social studies and science and other teachers' classes, I think, as well. But I was in his class full time, and I was normally just going in the morning. I was kind of tired, and I talked about that I felt like I had a plastic anemia because I remember doing this. Because I always saw myself as an athlete because I was doing so much cardio, I was playing soccer, and I didn't understand why I felt so tired. And I remember being clammy, kind of pale in my face. And I never figured out, I never found out why. Because I used to have random nosebleeds, very easy nosebleeds all the time as growing up as a kid. It'd be really hot outside, it'd be blistering hot outside, and I'd get a nosebleed. I don't know if that's related to my plastic anemia that I didn't know I possibly had. But anyway, I'm in the class, I walk in, and the teacher seems to be frantic and doing this. And the students were kind of running around, talking, kind of joking, and he snaps. And I just happened to be right next to him. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to any teachers or anything. I just came in, with my backpack. And I was just watering the plants like I'm supposed to. And he looks and he just turns and he grabs me by the shoulders. And he goes, "I tell you to sit down!" And and my neck goes like this, like violently, and the entire, and he just, there was no build up for him to be aggravated at me because I wasn't a bad student toward him. And he just snapped, and he grabbed my shoulders, and my neck was snapping back and forth, and I don't know what it is to think. And he did it 5 or 6 times violently, and he goes like this, and there was no buildup of anger, misbehaving, said anything foul. That he just saw me and he went at me. This guy's like 6'2", 6 foot. He's like 6'2", 6'3", and he at least 250 pounds. Okay, I'm 9 to 10 years old, and as soon as he gets done, he goes, "Everybody's," and he yells, "Sit down, everybody!" And everybody, and there was all these students that saw it, and then I just quickly go, not quickly, but I walk over to my desk, and I was so like I didn't know what to do. And he walks over calmly, didn't say anything, walks over to the desk. You can ask everyone in this class, and I just like sort of start shaking, and I just start like I'm trying to not cry. What I'm trying to do at the time is not cry in front of my students or my other friends, because when you're a kid you want to cry like a wuss, right? And for some reason I did everything I could, but I couldn't because I was so scared. And I kind of balled up, and I was sort of shaking and scared, and I didn't even want to put my head up. And I remember Dallas Patterson coming over to me and saying, "Hey, you all right?" And the students were looking over at the teacher like, "What the fuck did you just do to him?" And I was trying to hold it in and not cry, and I just started crying. And I was so scared, almost kind of trying to hide in my cubby, this desk, little cubby desk that they had, and I was just so frightened. And after he saw me, starting to cry, and the entire class is quiet, everybody's sitting at their desk, silent, not making a move or sound. And they can hear everything I'm doing and saying. And I'm not saying any words, I'm just, crying, like this kid, little puppy, crying in a corner. And he goes, "Go clean yourself in the bathroom, Hector." And he's sitting at his desk, and he's just like, and he doesn't really make eye contact with me. I walk and I start bawling and crying in the bathroom. And I talked about there was some kid that walked in there, and he was the biggest, toughest kid there, and he felt real compassion, real sorry for me. He goes, "Hey man, you all right?" And because he knew I was a tough kid at that time. I mean, we're all kids, right? This is, but I'm telling you, this is what the story went. And I just clean up these tears as much as I can. I'm in there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just trying to not, they didn't want me here crying. So anyway, I finally go back. I don't know if the teacher came into the bathroom and said, "Hector, come back out." And I don't know what he did. I don't know if he did. I don't know but it was 20 minutes I was in the bathroom. And I walked to the class, and you could see everyone knew that I was crying. And I wanted to say this. I go and I get home. And once I get home, I walk through the door just like my dad used to see me when I walked home from first grade, second and third grade. I literally just dropped my backpack and I just walked over to him crying as he was reading the newspaper like he always sat. In the same place I used to come home, and he used to think to himself all the time, he says, "I'm going to pick you guys up from school," because he used to pick me and Frankie up. In fourth grade, Frankie was already in middle school. So what happens is I go home, walk through the door, just walk over slightly, start crying to my dad. And he goes, "Well, what's wrong? Why are you crying? What's wrong?" He goes, "The teacher grabbed me." And I was like, my neck. It was like he grabbed me and he shook me. He goes, "He what? He touched you? He what?" And so the next morning, I go to school. My dad goes to the principal's office. The principal's office. When the principal's office the principal wasn't there. I don't remember who the principal was, but I could have been Miss McFerrin. I don't think it was. And I know she was either a lesbian or a transgender, that's for sure. But the assistant principal, pretty sure she was a female, yeah, and she was just a rancid, bee, just nastiest. Well, nobody liked her in the school. I don't remember her name. And she my father scheduled a meeting within 2 to 3 days. It wasn't even. It was later that week. It was like 2 to 3 days later. I walk into the class, and I talked about most of this. But this is what I want to talk about: how disciplinary the police department is to the homosexuals to allow Frankie, who had been raped and attacking me, to keep quiet. And this is how all the homosexuals started targeting the children that my mother had. Because guess who needs to be popular for Michael Jackson? Guess who's the leader of the gay community? So the gay community, I'm not kidding you, like I talked about this, and Dusty Griffin, his mother was the principal. His mother was the person up at the front desk, and she was a straight woman because her son went there. And when we walked in, like 3 days later, now you keep in mind that in these 3 days, they're trying to figure out what the story is to get away with what they did. I go walk into class. Miss Lowry, who was very close to me, and Miss Wahlberg walk in, and we're having all a meeting. And I remember Miss Lowry and Miss Wahlberg said, if you don't let me be in this meeting, then I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to resign and go to I'm going to resign, and I'm going to go to the superintendent and get you fired, or write up there was a war between the teachers and the principal that what had happened, because they wanted to hear what had happened. So I walk in, and Miss Wahlberg and Miss Lowry are in there, and Miss Lowry stayed through the whole time. I think Miss Wahlberg could have left early. But anyway, it's the assistant principal, my dad, me, and Mr. Bassi and Lowry, and Mrs. Lowry, which is Matt Lowry's mother. She was brilliant, very good teacher to me, very nice, very kind woman when I was in school. And I recall in this meeting, they completely turned the subject against me for at least 40 minutes. I'm not talking at least 30 to 40 minutes to talk about how bad I was. And my grades actually weren't very good. They weren't all that great. And this had nothing to do about what this guy had grabbed me. And she was predatory, walking in the entire time inside that office, just prowling against me. And I mean, looking at me like I was just like you can't mess with you think you can mess with this? And I mean, just the whole time. And Miss Lowry didn't like her, and we're talking to the class, and I have to demonstrate to my dad in front of the other teachers how Mr. Bassi grabbed me and shook me. And he goes, tell me violently how he did it. Now, how do you do it? And I go, he grabbed me and shook really hard. He goes, no, do it exactly like he did. So she wanted me to use aggression, force, to violently use reverse psychology. But I didn't want to, because I didn't want to hurt her. It's like, he did it like that. He did it like real hard. And so before we even get to that discussion, after demoralizing me about my grades, my dad gets mad in the conversation, and he says, I'm here to talk about how this guy touched my son. What did he do? I want to hear to talk about how this guy touched my son. Remember about how Frankie got raped by Miguel and Diana were all in on it, that transgender, Mickey's parents? Okay. Now, this has already happened. I'm already in 4th grade. This is 3 years after this incident had happened. 3 to 4 years after, because I failed 1st grade. So it was about 4 years after. 4 to 5. 1st grade failed. 1st grade failed. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So it was about 5 years. 4 to 5 years. And we go into we finish the conversation, and I show the teacher, how do you shake me? And that was it. And it was like an hour, and I was crying the entire time. I was just like sobbing, like with my head down, and she just shamed me. She just shamed me like I was a stupid. I mean, I didn't make bad grades. I didn't make like just the worst. It was passing, but it was bad grades. That's it. I wasn't a violent student. I didn't get written up. I wasn't a bad kid. And we go back to class. The guy didn't get and let me tell you, I forgot to mention this. when I walk into the principal's office, Mrs. Griffin gets on the phone and she's looking at the principal, or the assistant principal. Goes, the police officers are circling around the building right now, and she said something, or something like that, or she said referencing some sort of law or something. But no, wait, that was when I was in 6th grade. That's when the whole gay community. But there was some reference of that. I don't know if she was working there at that time. I think she could have. But there was some reference that there was some authority that was watching. Okay? There was something, I remember that. I don't remember exactly the exact words. So we walk in, do the discussion, we leave. Once we leave, this teacher not only didn't get fired, but got to keep their job for the remaining year while they get to go look for another job. This teacher didn't have the police officers called on them, and it wasn't because my dad didn't want to press charges. They literally turned the tables against my father, and they were manipulated, because you got to keep in mind, everyone knows about these rapes. Everyone knows about what happened to Frankie in this rape. So this is how they're coming after me now. So this is what I wanted to talk about, but this whole situation that had happened, you have to understand that the homosexuals, this lady was wearing in all blue. She was wearing all blue dress, all blue, and she's a female. So I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important to discuss the terror that was not only happening to Frankie, but then they start putting me down in order to keep quiet. So that in time, as long as nobody finds out, they're going to get the Michael Jackson, they're going to get the gay community movement. I couldn't express any more of a curse that you could possibly put on a family, because the president of the United States is probably involved, and I'm lucky that he didn't have me murdered and assigned to have me murdered, is because if the world were to find out that Frankie got raped by 10 homosexual men and Michael Jackson met us, and I got raped and my mother was being prostituted and nothing happened over the period of time. Remember, they already gave my mom the dream makeover's house when I was 20 years old, and all these, my mom had her identical twin snatched from her. If they all find out, and the United States finds out, it's going to shame Michael Jackson and the celebrity world and the police department at the most highest level. So it's better to have you murdered than to spoil the goods of the president, and that's his celebrities and Michael Jackson gay movement. So I wanted to talk about this because that's what happened. I think it's important to discuss. This teacher did not have the police officers called on him. I'm 9 to 10 years old, and this guy is 6'3". Now, I talked about other guys that raped Frankie that were really big, so I know what it is to have somebody grab you and you're 6'3", 6'2". This guy was 250 pounds, at least 250 pounds. This guy was like not fat, not muscle, but he was tall and just big. Like he was a tall person, and he had fat on him, but he was a big dude. He was at least 250 pounds. So I know what that feels like when somebody grabs you as a kid. You better shut up. Remember who's bigger than you. I'm going to tell you who's boss. Keep quiet. Now I'm going to discipline you. And I never talked about it again. I never talked about it again with any of the other teachers, because the entire school teachers knew about it, and they couldn't believe why he didn't get arrested, why he didn't, the police officers didn't show up. Because the gay community, remember how he got away with it? Remember Michael Jackson for the gays, for the gay community, because they think my dad's just gay. My dad had sex with my mother numbers of times. I was there and I saw the whole thing, okay? I talked about this. I don't know if he did this with his first wife. I know my father was bisexual, for sure, was gay for sure. I think he just had sex with a woman because he just felt like he needed to or had to or something. So, I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important, okay? I think it's very important. So, this is how the persecution of Michael Jackson and the gay community starts also against me. Because now that I'm finding out that I've talked about all these years, these last 5 years about Frankie rapes, I drew the evidence, this changes the course of everything and how they went after me, and to show you evidence. You could ask everyone in that class. Now, I never talked about it. We moved on. The teacher left once the year was completed with that school year. I never saw the teacher again. In fact, the teacher, before we even left, he began toying with me. Mr. Vassy had a habit of picking up little kids and putting them on his shoulder while we would go to recess, like he was a playful. You ever seen Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Cop or whatever, where he's a kindergarten teacher and he picks up the little kids and he's all, like he's a hero or whatever? That's what he used to do all the time. Well, he tried to earn my trust and a couple of times picked me up toward the end of the year like he was just playing, and he would do this in front of the other teachers to let you know what I can get away with through the gay community because the police officers are on my gay side. And that's what it is. There's no reason why this shouldn't have happened. This guy should have gotten arrested or whatever. It is too late, but this is to show you how powerful Michael Jackson is and the leaders in the gay community and all the celebrities and people that were also gay involved. Now fast forward. I'm in 6th grade. And I talk about, anything you want to know about. There are several teachers, there's several students that can talk about this, that can verify this in this conversation. There's a guy by the name of Emilio. Emilio was like a gangster bully. He had like a little stub here and a ponytail, and he always mocked, not mocked, but sort of foreplay, or sort of played this role of like he was a gangster in VNS, North Side, or whatever. We're kids, we're 12 years old. And, he had birthday parties. He was one student that heard when I was in 6th grade, and I think he was 2 or 3 other students, where we used to have rotations, and that was the Miss Weiss class. And Miss Shocker, and then there was a science teacher. It was 3 teachers for 6th grade. I go to social studies. I'm in Miss Shocker's class. She's sitting at her desk. And I'm pretty sure she's a real woman. She's authentic female woman. But you know exactly who she looks like? She's a white woman with blonde hair, blue eyes, bleached blonde hair, white skin. She said that her doctor was a doctor. She said her husband was a doctor. She was already old. She's not alive anymore because she was already like 60 years. She was already 60 and she was like retiring in a couple of years. And we're in her class, and she begins telling me, and she says, I don't think she was a transgender. I'm pretty sure she wasn't, maybe, because I remember she went at it with Miss Weiss or Miss Rosen. I don't know if Miss Rosen and Ginger were the same people. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm in her class, and she begins to talk about celebrities. And she goes, yeah, I know celebrities. And she starts milking me to find out if I remember or I say anything about Michael Jackson. I'm in 6th grade, I'm 13 years old. And she begins questioning and playing sort of this cat and mouse conversation with these kids. And there's several students. She goes, yeah, I met Troy Aikman, and he goes, yeah, I met Troy Aikman, had their autographs, we have season passes, we always go to the football games. And I remember her always sort of milking about celebrities because she was the biggest Dallas Cowboys fan. So I wanted to talk about this because this is how they begin baiting me. Emilio can verify this conversation. He was a Mexican kid, and he actually, I didn't know this, but he actually worked with him like 1 or 2 days with my Uncle Beto. And with my Uncle Beto many years ago. And you know what, maybe even Noe. I think Noe actually worked with my Uncle Beto too. But anyway, I know Emilio did because I talked to him and he was doing remodeling, and I either referenced to him or I was on a day of work with my uncle or I was in the car with him. I don't know why, for what reason, and I was like 15 years old or 16 or 17. I don't remember how I ended up being in the car with him, but I didn't know this guy. And I didn't know his phone number, hang out with him, and I just happened to say, oh, I used to know you from 6th grade. He goes, yeah. I work remodeling. He goes, yeah, I work with your uncle. He goes, oh, yeah, I work with your uncle. I work with him for like a couple of weeks, but man, he doesn't pay too well, because all his workers used to say that. So anyway, so I just wanted to reference that, because he's somebody that can reference that Miss Shocker used to say, talk about these celebrities. Now, I think it's important to discuss how the terror begins. So this is what I want to talk about, and I also going to talk about. This is the other one. That's going to be the other video I'm going to make is really disturbing. I want to say this because this is for the investigators. This is for the thorough people that are looking at these videos and saying, what happened to Frankie? What happened to my mom? What happened to the kids that got abducted? What happened to the rapes that had happened in detail, so that you can sort everything out, you can figure everything out for yourself. Because there's nothing that can be done. But I want to talk about Frankie's story, and I want to talk about my mother's story. I know it's Thanksgiving Day, so, but I wanted to say this because I think they're persecuting my mother, and I think you don't understand how awful they're using my mother to turn her against me. That's all that they're doing. 100%. Every single word that my mother's twins, I'm not allowed to talk to my mother. Every time I talk to my mother's twins, they are nasty to me. They are really, really nasty to me. I'm like almost to the close of wishing me death and suffering. I can hear them when I talk on the phone that they're talking to someone and they're reading off someone, and someone saying, okay, now tell him this. Okay, now tell him he's a piece of shit. Now okay, now act aggressive. Okay, now say it's okay. No, and I can tell that because even though I don't know the identical twins, I can tell that they're entirely reading, or someone is on the other line telling them to persecute me like that. Now be aggressive. Tell him, shut him down. Shut him down. And I'm trying to have a conversation with what I thought was my mother at times for the last probably 3 years. For probably the last 2 years to 3 years, I had been talking. Found out it's only been about 2 to 3 years. I want to say that I think now that I know that I haven't been talking to my mother, it's her twin. But you have to understand the persecution of what they're doing. They're turning the identity of my mother against me for the rapes, for what Sarah and Ken did in that Cooper family, in the police department, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and the horror of rapes. Because I know and believe Frankie is in a nursing home. And they're doing everything they can to dismiss me, and not dismiss me of any credit that I ever did anything for Frankie and my mother, and to make it even balance that it was Sarah Cooper and the Cooper family, white power. And it's all about prejudice. It's all about putting me down. That's all it is, because they want to cover up, because this is Michael Jackson that's involved. The leader, their God leader, the gay community leader. So I thought it was important for me to talk about this, but I want to go ahead and make this other video. This is the most disturbing new evidence that I've ever found about Frankie.